Hey, I'm Ton Vin, host of Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW. Seattle fine dining spots are nixing their prefix menus and going casual. But change is a good thing for restaurants and customers. On the latest episode, I'll tell you about the high-end menus that are worth hitting. Listen to Seattle Eats on the KUOW app or wherever you get your podcasts.
On our most recent episode, we reported on how tons of young people are choosing trade school over college out of fear of white-collar jobs drying up. Companies appear to be making big bets that AI can replace huge chunks of their workforces.
Why are these tech companies laying off so many employees?
It would make sense to think AI is to blame for the layoffs.
These are not warehouse workers. They're not delivery drivers. They are corporate employees. They're engineers, managers, product teams.
Go to trade school has become the new learn to code. But some computer science professors say the outlook isn't so bleak for kids who still want a career in tech.
We're producing more graduates than ever, and they're taking more software engineering positions than ever.
I'm Monica Nicholsberg, and this is Booming. Today, are reports of AI driving a white-collar bloodbath greatly exaggerated? That's coming up.
Did you get into Stanford?
Yeah, and this is totally going to get my dad off my back, and they said they liked my story, so I'm going to take a CS class there. And they're so nice. I was asking if it was going to be pass-fail, and they were like, it's up to you. And then I said, is there going to be homework? And they were like, only if you want it. And so then I guess I have to decide if I want it, which kind of already feels like homework.
Tech jobs just reached an 8-year low here in Seattle. In just the last year, the city lost 15,000 positions in the industry. At the same time, companies are pouring tons of money into data centers and cutting-edge AI. That spells trouble for the computer science majors of today. And to some, this is a sign that AI is ready to take center stage and replace the human software engineers needed in the past. But Dan Grossman disagrees. Grossman is a professor and vice director of the University of Washington's Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering, one of the top computer science programs in the country. I sat down with him to hear about why he thinks computer science majors are here to stay. Dan, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So you recently co-authored this statement meant to dispel myth versus reality when it comes to computer science careers and artificial intelligence. You wrote that reports of AI replacing software engineers are, quote, alarmist doom and gloom. But a recent study from the New York Federal Reserve found students graduating with computer science degrees have some of the highest unemployment rates of any major. So if it's not AI, what do you think is driving this trend?
I think the reasons have to do with companies quickly reorganizing, quickly focusing on AI. And at the same time they're doing layoffs, they are also continuing to hire into their growth areas. And I see some studies suggesting that new graduates at other institutions are struggling more than in the past. On the other hand, I think the size of the industry overall has really not contracted. And I also think that if you compare 2025 to, say, 2021, that's a very unfair comparison. Through the pandemic, the tech industry chose to expand extremely rapidly because online services and online products were what all of us were relying on when we were primarily stuck at home.
Yeah, I want to double down on some of those factors and unpack them, particularly overhiring during the pandemic. Could this effect really still be lingering 5 years since the start of the pandemic? I mean, these companies have been cutting thousands of jobs every few months for several years. How long does this mistake take to correct?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a mistake. I would say that at the time, software companies needed to roll out very quickly a range of services that we all relied on in the pandemic. And then I think there was some hesitation to unwind that, right? Getting rid of employees is never a simple decision for any company. And I think it has taken some time. Our perspective on this is just, and this is not my data, but our best effort to understand the regional scene or even the national scene is to just look at the total size of these companies and the total number of software engineers in these companies. even if you account for all the rounds of layoffs we have been hearing about for the last year or two, these companies have more software engineers than they did at the beginning of 2020.
Interesting. Do you have any sense of what level those software engineers are at?
No, that's not data I usually have. And the mix of, junior engineers, senior engineers, that's not something I have a lot of insight into. If I look at the data I do have from the Allen School here at the University of Washington, they are pretty much by definition taking positions at entry level or one level above. And I'm seeing, more hires than ever.
More hires than ever. So does that mean the percentage of students graduating out of your program and landing jobs sort of right away is increasing?
The percentage has been pretty steady for the last couple of years, I would say, and is very hard to unpack because some go to graduate school, some go to take some time off. It's a bit messy. The number is up in part because our program has grown. At the same time, if the tech scene was as doom and gloom as I'm sort of regularly reading about in articles, then you couldn't hit these all-time highs even with program growth, right?
Okay. The second reason that you give for some tightening in the software engineer job market is something that I don't think people are as aware of. This is changes to the research and development tax code. Unpack that for us. What's changed and how is it affecting the software engineer workforce?
Oh boy. When software engineers develop new products that will then exist for many years, my understanding is the labor expense is seen as an investment in a particular year that then leads to revenue over many years. And there were certain depreciation schedules, the same way that capital expenses like buildings and furniture can have depreciation schedules. And there were some changes to tax law that made software engineers effectively more expensive.
Interesting. That sort of fits into this shift that I've seen in the tech industry where talent was the most important asset and has sort of become, in some cases, a bit of a financial liability when these companies are trying to free up tens of billions of dollars to spend on data centers.
The other thing that I don't have a lot of insight into is how much of this is really a matter of liquidity and needing the cash to do things and trading off salary expenses, even for very valuable engineers and products, versus other things that you could use with that same cash. How much of this is a cash flow issue and how much of this is a net revenue and earnings thing that's more sort of quarter to quarter or year to year? Or to be maybe a little more blunt about this, how much of this is pleasing Wall Street and how much of this is sort of core use of limited resources to get the company to where it wants to go?
In reporting on this question of whether AI is replacing workers, usually I hear something pretty aligned with what you're talking about, that the technology isn't ready to replace workers one-to-one. But if you look at a company like Amazon, say, which says it expects to flatten its hiring curve even as it doubles its e-commerce business, it seems hard to interpret that as anything other than a bet that AI and automation will be able to replace workers in the near future.
I have a different take on it, which is that AI will transform software engineering. I've been in this field for about 25 years, and I've seen software engineering transform throughout that interval. When I started, software was developed for about a year and then was printed onto compact discs, put in boxes, wrapped in plastic, and shipped to stores where people entered the stores and bought them. And the next release of the software didn't come out for a year. Everything has changed from that world. And throughout that entire process, software engineers have gotten more efficient and had to rely on new tools to be as efficient and as effective as their competitors. And AI, I see as a next step in that. And software engineers will need to know how to use AI effectively in order to meet new standards of creativity and efficiency. Now, you can always argue that this time is different, but what I've seen over the last 25 years is every time software engineers have gotten more efficient, we've simply built better products and more products and seen the industry expand and expand and expand. The number of engineers you need to build software the way we built software in the year 2000 is much smaller than it was 25 years ago. But instead, we have a booming tech industry that does things we couldn't even have imagined 25 years ago.
We're always coming up with new ideas for things software can do.
In a lot of industries, if you get more efficient, you simply build the same number of products with fewer people and less money. Software has a very long history of not working like that. Instead, we find new, exciting software and new features for the software we already have.
Still, there's a lot of anxiety out there about this. And I'm wondering if the fears of the white-collar bloodbath, as some have called it, are trickling down to incoming students. Are applications for the Allen School's computer science program down?
Nationally and at the Allen School, we did see a drop in applications from 2024 to 2025 that was about 20%. Now, 20% is not an enormous amount given how volatile applications can be sometimes. And our 2025 numbers were still higher than our 2021 numbers and are 10 times higher than we have capacity for. Even after that drop, we still have 10 times as many applications as we have capacity for. So the field of computing still remains very popular compared to roughly any other sort of major field you can think of. And if anything, the drop means that we don't have to turn away as many students as we wish we had capacity for.
So it's not something that you're worrying about?
Well, it's not something that I'm worried about in the sense that every business cycle, every time there's been rounds of layoffs, we have seen the student demand follow. It's cyclic, but every cycle ends up at a higher place than the cycle before. So what we've seen over many decades is the demand for computer science university education go up overall with ups and downs within that up overall that follow what you read in the newspaper.
How is the Allen School helping current students prepare for this sometimes more difficult or at least constantly changing job market?
We're helping in a lot of ways. First of all, one of the great advantages of being a research university is that we can innovate our curriculum more quickly and keep it on the bleeding edge. And in fact, we've been expanding in AI and machine learning for many years now because we have world-class researchers that knew about large language models before most people did. And we've been able to make sure that our students can graduate with classes in natural language processing, in computer vision, in robotics, in all the areas where AI has been very impactful in recent years. On the software engineering side, we are piloting new courses where students can learn where AI is and is not yet helpful in producing software and helping software engineers. And we're adding that to our curriculum that is also going to teach the fundamentals that will help students for a long career through many transformations and advances in how we develop software.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me that the Allen School is a top 10 computer science department. And so it would make sense that if there's a limited number of entry-level positions, a lot of them would go to graduates of your school. But I do wonder about other programs that are maybe less competitive, and maybe that's where we're seeing more of the softening that has been reported.
That is certainly possible. And I think that when you have something disruptive, currently AI, we've seen other disruptive things even in technology, such as cloud computing, such as web native applications, and so forth. It is a partnership between academia and industry to figure out what entry-level engineers should know and how they will improve over time. The director of the Allen School, Magda Belazinska, loves to say, by definition, there will always be entry-level positions, but what that entry level is and what you do will change over time. And both sides in that partnership need to adapt.
I wonder, as you've been thinking about these issues, Is there anything universal that you've learned about preparing computer science graduates for the AI age that could help students in any major?
Yes, absolutely. Here's my favorite one to think about. Large language models are designed to produce the statistically most likely thing. That is exactly what a chatbot you're using is doing. Take the question and produce the most likely, most reasonable answer given what you've been prompted. But in business and in life, that's often good enough and often not. What we really want are novel, creative things that other people have not thought of, and they're not the aggregate of the existing conventional wisdom. And so I think it really is exciting to let the AI do the stuff that's known and free up the engineers to be creative and dream the things that are not known.
Great. I think that's a good place to leave it for now. Thank you for being here, Dan.
My pleasure.
That's it for Booming. Thank you for listening. If you have a question about the economy that you want us to answer, email us at booming@kuow.org. Or you can leave us a voicemail at 206-221-7158. And before we go, we're running an audience survey so that we can get to know you better and make sure that the show that we're making is the one that you want to be listening to. You can find the link to that in our show notes. And a quick shout out to those of you who are donating to the show. If you want to donate, you can go to kuow.org/booming. And thanks. Our producers are Lucy Suchek and Alec Cowan. Our editor is Carol Smith. Our show is hosted by Joshua McNichols and me, Monica Nicholsberg. We'll see you next time.